Welcome to the Drivable Podcast. I'm Elliot Barrion and over there is Brad Williams. Today we are talking about support coordinators and driving and anything to do around that with McArthur Community Care and their director, Andy Sherratt. McArthur Community Care is part of the McArthur Group, established in 1969 with offices nationwide, and they have a huge disability services arm. So I'm really excited to talk about support coordinators. This is going to be a really big and exciting episode. So Brad, are you ready to get into it?
Yeah, absolutely. Ellie, support coordinators make a world of difference. So let's find out all about them.
Welcome to the Drive Able podcast, where each episode you get to listen to two of Australia's leading professionals in the area of driving and community mobility for people with disabilities. In each episode, they interview drivers, carers, and industry experts and share the insider's guide to driving with a disability. Here are your hosts, Brad and Ollie.
Hi everyone, I am really excited to get into today's interview, but before we get started, we just wanted to make a quick shout out to the sponsors who make this show possible. Mobility Engineering and Williams OT. This show takes time and money to put together, and we are forever grateful for their passion to our industry. Okay, enough of the business. Let's get into the interview. Today we have Andrea or Andy Sherratt, who is the director of McArthur Community Care in Adelaide. G'day, Andrea. Thanks for joining us. Can we start by asking you to introduce yourself and tell us a little about McArthur and what you do within the disability sector, your position, and I guess how you guys got into all of that, and a little bit of an intro. And also, is it better Andrea or Andy?
Look, I love the name Andy, so let's go with Andy.
Okay, sounds good, Andy. Let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about McArthur and what you guys are doing there.
Well, thanks, Ellie, for the introduction. My name's Andy. I've been in the disability sector for 36 years now, working closely with people with disabilities. McArthur is a national organisation that supports many lines of business. The disability business was, I guess, a business that was built 6 years ago. Simply due to such a high need in the community for quality service. And I guess McArthur hold that over 50 years with the quality service that they provide to many lines of business.
So what were they doing prior to 6 years ago, McArthur?
Okay, so McArthur was established in 1969 as a recruitment company, and they were providing labour hire to many industries, early childhood, local government, accounting, nursing even, so MedStaff, the oldest nursing agency here in South Australia. So there's many areas about McArthur. Typically it is a recruitment company, but the disability arm of McArthur is, I guess, a business within a business.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what areas in the disability sector and the NDIS sector are you offering? Is it disability support, or is it support coordination, or what other areas are you assisting in the disability sector and NDIS sector?
Sure. Well, the beautiful aspect about McArthur is that they identify people that are so passionate about the industry that they work in. And I guess for us, my background is provision of supports to people with disabilities. So that is actually working with the person to identify all the aspects of their services that are important for them. We support people with high support needs, high complex, to people that just require a little bit of social support during the day. And we also provide support coordination or specialist support coordination. That's a separate area to the in-home support. So the support coordination typically is a practitioner or a professional person with industry knowledge, industry background, that intimately knows a client's support needs, but also knows many other therapists, professionals in the industry that can actually come together to, I guess, make the experience for the participant, I guess, a lot more of an enhanced experience because they're meeting all of their individual goals.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, and I guess we spoke about a little bit offline, and something that I've what I really highlight, I guess, within this this podcast is the concept of the support coordinator, and kind of dig into what they do and how accessible they are for everybody out there. Because as you just mentioned, it sort of seems like you can access this service from high needs all the way down to even just the basic social sort of stuff.
I guess if we look at the background of disability, we have come such a long way in while we're here now in NDIS setting. But for those that have actually been in the industry for quite a period, we would know, or they would know, that people have come from a welfare model. So therefore, their basic needs were just being met. And if there was anything additional that they wanted, they would have to rely on family members to provide those additional services. And goals wasn't really something that we spoke about back then. It was just purely about the services that the person requires to meet their daily needs, their basic daily needs. So now that the NDIS has come in, we're now talking about goals. So participants are actually now having to think about, well, what is it that I actually want for my life, and how can I make that happen? And this is where the support coordinator or the specialist support coordinator comes in. So they sit with the participant and they identify and they really extract a person's essence to actually see, well, what is it that they actually want for the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and they map the people accordingly to make that happen. And those people that specialist support coordinators can draw on are people like occupational therapists, speech therapists, dietitians, exercise physiologists. There are so many professionals out there now that a client participant can actually tap into to actualize their goals.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that thing about the sort of the old versus the new, the welfare model. We've had a few people on here with sort of that were part of pre-NDIS life, and it's really interesting how different the culture is towards disabled people and how it's changing. And like it's almost like it was like I've met some people, particularly in my part of the world, the engineering, that are trying to, quote unquote, for lack of a better term, help within the disability sector, but they're kind of like a previous generation, and that, like, they're nice and they're trying to be helpful, but it's always like it's on their terms, if that makes sense. And that's sort of like the welfare model. It's like, look, this is what we're giving you and you can just deal with it and make it fit within your structure, but that's all there's available, and it is what it is. Whereas I think there's been this huge, like a massive shift into like, okay, now what do you want and who are you as a person all of a sudden? And also, and that's actually one huge reason why we've, I guess, pushed with this podcast, is to really share that whole idea that it's not the OT's decision to tell you what you need. It's not my decision, the supplier or anyone's, or your mum and dad or anyone. It's you. You know, you've built that experience through whatever it is your life. However you want to do it, you got to do it. And this is awesome to have this this power and this complete shift. But I think what I'm seeing is even the community and the end users themselves, the clients, also need to come along with a little bit of that shift, because that culture is really stuck within a lot of that community.
Absolutely. And yeah, look, and that's a really good point, Ali, because there has been a major shift, and there has been this notion of be grateful for what you've got. I mean, we were seeing people in their 30s go into nursing homes simply because there wasn't adequate funding to be able to have those individuals live in their own home. So there was this capping of funding, and if you exceeded that, if your family members couldn't step in, well, you're going to have to go into a nursing home, which was totally inappropriate. But we've come such a long way. But this whole notion of goal setting is really difficult for some people.
Well, yeah, that's why I guess why I wanted to really use that to segue into this concept of this support coordinator, because like it's not even within the fiber of that community that, hey, you can have a goal and you can do something with that goal. It's kind of like you've been raised from when you were born, everyone telling you how to think and what you should do, and you know how you should move and what wheelchair you should use and what part you should use and so on. So I guess you just have to practice even thinking that way. You know, that's a pretty big shift for a person. And that's why I really love this idea of the support coordinator, because I think it's almost like it's almost like a life coach in a way, you know, to
Absolutely.
start to shift your mind. And I guess let's talk a little bit more about that, and what they do and how they work with the clients and helping them sort of develop that goal. So as you said, NDIS is all about the goals. And so the support coordinator is effectively like helping you figure that out.
Well, they're there to actually work with the participant and work side by side to extract the goals. Ideally, a specialist support coordinator or support coordinator has the industry background, the industry knowledge, and the connections to be able to connect the participant to the various agencies, and whether that's organisations that do the provision of in-home support, whether it's connecting nursing services. Occupational therapy. I mean, there's some participants that are having tendon transfers so that they can actually, regain a little bit more fine motor skills. And those participants may want to eventually drive a car. They've been told for so long that they're not going to be able to, but we're actually empowering people now to have a think about what it is that they're actually really wanting to achieve. And that's where the support coordinator comes in. So they work with the person, they work with their significant others or advocates, family members, to really identify those goals. And then they go away and they research. But the beautiful aspect of support coordinators or specialist support coordinators is that it's all about choice and control. And we don't always get along with everybody we meet. Let's face it, there are some people that we gravitate to more than others. And that's the role of the support coordinator, is to introduce significant people that will become a part of the participant's life, to enable them to and empower them to achieve all of their goals, whatever they may be, whether it's swimming, doing swimming lessons, or doing archery, or horse riding, whatever it may be. They're there to explore all things possible for the participant.
Yeah, that's really cool. And in terms of when you would, I guess, what I'm interested in is how does it sort of fit within the NDIS, and when do you access them in terms of payment and so on? Because I guess from what I've learned through discussing with other people and within our own company, you have to, I guess, apply for NDIS, and then is this sort of like the first thing you would access?
Yeah, look, that's an interesting question, Ali. So a participant, if they're eligible for NDIS, they will be met by a planner, and a planner is typically from the NDIS or from other organisations. So that planner is that initial stage. They'll sit with the participant and identify all the areas that they need assistance with, whether that's personal care or whether that's meal preparation, medication prompts, or just simply being, transferred back to bed at night time. So then the NDIS plan will be built. Now, in that plan, essentially, there's many components to a participant's plan. There's a core aspect where the individual services is drawn from. There's goal setting, there's consumables, and there's many areas. There's the support coordination. So that the plan is actually broken down into several chunks. And each area has an allocated amount of funds to it. So some participants' plans may have an allocation of 10 hours over a period of 6 months or a period of a year. Other plans I've seen, which are very high complex plans, have things like 100 hours set aside for that participant. And that is for the specialist or the support coordinator to work alongside of that person and do the behind the scenes research, and just simply work with that person, introduce various other organisations to them, and then they step out. And so there's that check and in process to ensure that the person has met up with the OT, has met up with the equipment provider, has been introduced to service providers. So it's a gentle checking in process as well. Yeah, but there's some other really complex areas about specialist support coordination, and that's exploring housing. So for some participants, they will have a component in their plan for specialist disability accommodation. And that would be working alongside of providers that are, I guess, essentially providing the bricks and mortar for participants to live in.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's where we see these larger plans, because the support coordinators or the specialist support coordinators are typically linking them in and showing them potential homes as well.
Okay, and then with the support coordinator in as part of the plan, is it automatically, does the planner automatically put support coordination for everybody, for every participant?
No, not necessarily, because there's been some people that have naturally had disabilities for most of their life. So they're already well connected, but it's for those clients, participants that aren't necessarily well connected, haven't actually thought about their goals or how they're going to meet their goals. And that's where a support coordinator will be then linked in with them.
Yeah,
this is interesting. I was going to ask Brad a question here, and then maybe you can go forward with what you were going to say, Brad. As an OT, sounds like, I guess from my experience, what Andy is saying that support coordinators do, often maybe OTs get placed with that job, and they're trying to figure that out based on our discussions. And I'm thinking maybe if OTs knew that this service was out there, it might actually be a good support for OTs as well. What do you think about that, Brad?
Oh, we love support coordinators. Absolutely love support coordinators. When we get a referral and we're working with a client and we can see that they've got a support coordinator, there's more often or not that their goals are actually going to be achieved. We find support coordinators are wonderful with liaising with the NDIS, really back up the client's needs, the client's goals, and are a real advocate for the participant and that link into the NDIS. That's where we find support coordinators are just, when we find gold support coordinators, we love the gold support coordinators. They make a massive difference to the client's outcomes. And it's the ones that can really advocate and assist with the funding. Because when it comes to driving, there's a lot of hurdles to overcome. When it comes to car modifications, when it comes to even being a passenger in a car, like the photo behind you, Ali, being a passenger and advocating for why you need to be in a certain position in the car, why you need to be maybe up next to the driver, or why is it important to be in a wheelchair versus not being in a wheelchair? Why do we need this modification versus that modification? The support coordinator can really help advocate for the participant and assist with all of the hurdles that come with trying to get the funding allocated for that. That's where we find the massive gold aspects for this.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more with you, Brad. It is such a critical, I see it's a critical component to a person's well-being. The specialist support coordinators and support coordinators within the McArthur group have a wealth of experience. We have over there occupational therapy, we have developmental educators, we have social workers, we have a psychologist. So it's from all those disciplines. And yeah, I mean, I've seen some amazing outcomes for participants, and not only are they working with the participant and checking in and making sure that the goals are being reached or we're getting close to the goals. What they often do as well is go back in and go back to bat for the participant. So if a review is required, if the circumstances of the participant has changed and there's a review that needs to occur, they will go in and really push for that as well, because they're actually working for the participant.
Yeah, and the bit that I find really useful, especially if you've got a goal around driving or getting out and about in the community, is those funds aren't allocated to your NDIS budget, your funds at the start. You've got to go and get your assessment, and then the assessment produces quotes and recommendations, and then they need to be allocated to the participants' line of funding. And if you've got a plan that's allocated for 2 or 3 years, as they are tending to do more now since the start of COVID compared to 1-year plan reviews, then people need to have a change of circumstance review to try and get those funds allocated. Andy, do you assist people through that process as a support coordinator?
Look, I personally don't, because I like to stick in my own camp. I mean, I'm in awe of what the support coordinators do for participants, because you're absolutely right. They will go out there and they will, I guess, order from the particular person assessments, functional capacity assessments, in order to justify why a person needs to have a house modified, or why a person needs to have 2-to-1 assist with transfers. But my area typically, Brad, is the provision of in-home support. So we work with the participant with their plan to make sure that all the areas of their individual needs are covered, from personal care to transfers to toileting to medication prompts to meal assistance to community access. So our role is quite large as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a podcast about getting out and about and getting out in the community and making sure you can get to appointments. But even, as we've heard, getting out to go to McDonald's or KFC or go to the beach or whatever it is, that community access is really important. As the support coordinators for in-home care, where does that fit into what you're doing as support providers in the home? How can that be?
Yeah, look, the support coordinators will work very closely with the participant to make sure that their provider, whoever that provider is actually providing the services that are in the participant's plan. And so it's constantly checking in so that there's no gaps. And I feel that, every participant that, does require that higher level of support needs to have someone checking in with them, because I think when we've come from that welfare model, some participants are still in that headset of, if this is the support services that I'm getting here, I'm not going to change providers, because who knows what support services I'll get elsewhere. So there's still some people that are really stuck in that headset, just be grateful for what I've got, where we're really trying to empower and encourage people to speak up. If this doesn't feel right, if your support worker is half an hour late, or they don't turn up one morning, and then you call on your friend down the road to assist you, it's actually not okay. Yeah. So this is where the support coordinator will work with the participant and extract all that information, check in and ask all the right questions. And I do believe that they are, I guess, essentially significant people that do keep providers on their toes if the participant doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, I really like the concept. I mean, it'll work, as you said, you're doing in-home stuff, but it definitely will work even with your, the transport side of things. One of the things which I was thinking of with what you're mentioning there, and also around the welfare stuff, is that whole piece of really understanding that you do have that inner desire can come out, and you can, and I think going through, just from what I'm hearing, going with a support coordinator may significantly cut down your stress and time as well in fighting for this stuff. Like, I'm thinking of, for example, one of our first guests, Deidre, to try and convince, NDIS of that just a swivel seat was better than because she wanted to sit next to her daughter while she went on drives, and rather than having her in the boot of the car in a van, it took her 2 years or a year and a half or something to convince the NDIS that this is what we need. And they just kept saying, no, stick her in the boot type thing. And I mean, we've seen her life now. It's amazing. They've got a phenomenal life, traveling all around the country, hundreds of thousands of dollars back into the community over many years, whereas they were stuck at home, for 30 years. So it's just interesting, because they've got a little bit of a, we've got to go it alone attitude, and you don't, and that's why I really love this concept. And you've got people that know what they're doing, and they can, I guess, for lack of the better term, kick the right butts that need to be kicked, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think where we operate from at McArthur, not just in South Australia, but Victoria, New South Wales and Brisbane, we really want to support the individual how we would want to be supported ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not rocket science. It's really quite simple. It's stepping in another's shoes, and it's going into bat for that person. I mean, we as a provider can't go into bat for a person in terms of requiring additional hours or anything like that, but a support coordinator can. And this is where the industry needs passionate people, experienced people that have been in the industry for some time, that will advocate and push for people as they would want for their own loved ones.
Yeah. No, that's really good. So I guess moving on, how do we find a support coordinator? What makes a good support coordinator? Any tips?
Yeah, look, what I think makes a good support coordinator is someone who's been in the industry for a while, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that they're good, but someone who is actually going to sit alongside of another and really come to understand that person, connect with them, and ask all the questions that you would want to be asked yourself in order to essentially build this person's profile in a way that I'm going to journey with you, and I'm going to see you achieve your goals every single step of the way. That, I believe, is what a specialist or support coordinator ideally is. Someone who can step in another's shoes and want for them that they would want for themselves, or someone that they love. Where we find these people, well, the support planners initially, when they're building the plan with a client, can steer them in the direction. We can Google support coordination, specialist support coordination, or support coordination. Just punch it into your browser, and there'll be so many that do come up. But your organisations, your OTs, your other therapists, they can steer you in that direction as well, because we have to really remember here, we're well and truly connected with each other. And I guess those that have a really high practice standard, they will be very connected to like-minded people.
So I've got a question from, this is coming from an occupational therapist background, and this might help people putting in modifications to cars, the engineers, the modifiers and so forth as well. We do one-off assessments, or we come in and we do a small chunk of their life. Big outcomes, but we're only seeing them for such a small amount of time. Is there tips that you can provide providers like occupational therapists or other therapists or car modifiers or engineers or whoever else is involved in the community access area? But we have lots of OTs listen to this podcast as well. Are there tips that you can provide therapists or these type of people on how to work well with support coordinators?
Not necessarily. I think anybody that's in this industry would probably know the tips themselves. So yeah, I probably couldn't offer any more information on that, Brad, than what I already have.
We're doing a good job then, hopefully.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. So I just wanted to clarify one of the first questions around this. If you're in your first stage of meeting the planner, if you're, I guess, a client listening to this, would you be flagging straight away, hey, make sure support coordination is in my plan? That'd be kind of something you really want to make sure more than anything, because if you've got that person, then at least if there's something wrong with the plan, they're going to be able to identify and help you adjust that. Is that right? Absolutely, Ali. The other aspect that I would probably include there is, if you are meeting with your planner, really do your absolute best to have someone alongside of you that knows you the best. Yeah, okay. Because not always, I guess, many people with living with disability are very proud people, and they've had to fight for things. And there's some things that a participant will fail to I guess, convey, whether it's out of pride or whether it's embarrassment, but to have someone alongside of them that knows them very well, that can just jump in when there seems to be some things missing, I think that's really important as well. Yeah, that's a really good tip, especially to those, I would say, really highlight that tip for people that are like adults, because in all the interviews that we've done, the children or the teenagers and so on, they do really well because they've got mum, you know, or dad. But more than often we celebrate the mums here because they're always, they do everything for you. They read the forms, you know, they know you inside out, and they can pick up those little things. And those people that have those mums or dads supporting them, but still shouting out to those mums, we always hear those success stories. But adults, they don't have that. And as you said, you know, especially if you've been dealing with this quote unquote crap your whole life, and, you know, I've done it all myself and etc. That's part of your DNA. So it's going to be pretty hard also to swallow that, hey, I need to have someone there. And it's actually, you might even feel that it's a form of weakness, but I think actually it's a form of strength. Because you're coming there with your community, and you're saying, hey, you can't mess with me. I've got a community here, you know, and we're not going to stand up for it. We all work together, and these guys know who I am, you know, and so if I don't know it, they will. So, and I think that's a huge show of strength more than anything.
I totally agree, Ali. And, you know, I love the word community. I love the word village, because these are the people that are around. We wrap around our people to ensure that we actually are really making sure that they get what they rightly deserve.
Yeah.
With support coordinating for your first planning meeting, so maybe you're new to the area, maybe you've got a young child and you're going for your first planning meeting, or maybe you're later into the NDIS and this is the first time you're looking to get the support from the NDIS. Should we have a support coordinator for our first planning meeting? Is that something that you have to pay for yourself? Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us, Daniel?
Yeah, generally, well, you wouldn't pay for it yourself. Generally, the first initial meeting is with you, the participant, and your planner. And then the support coordination comes in after. So it is, I think we touched on your point there before, Ali. Is it something that participants should be asking for initially at the planning meeting? Absolutely. So we're conveying that message that this is the person that we want, because these are the goals that I want to achieve. But I think anybody who is about to have a planning meeting, to really sit down with those significant people in your life, because we need to be mindful. We haven't, people with disabilities haven't always thought about goal setting. So we need to start getting them down before we have our planning meeting, so that we're covering everything, so that we're not missing anything. In saying that, though, if something has been missed, that's when the support coordinator, when they come on board, they can go in and bat for that as well.
Yeah, I really like, and I want to keep continuing to highlight this idea of, like, I guess leaning into your friends and family and community, and not just, you know, your mum and dad, but like everybody. You know, I guess I've been through some, you know, personal crises myself in recent times, and you don't realize, but your community is always looking out, you know, and you sometimes feel like you're alone, but then when you go out and talk to them, they're like, yeah, this is what you're like, and this is who you are, and so on and so forth, and they've got your back, and everyone's looking out for each other just like you are. And that's just the standard kind of human nature and community that we're in. So I think it's just lean into them, even for the goals. Like, it is one thing which I've realized of late is we're all interconnected, as you said. So even though a goal is yours, your community can help you find those goals, you know, because they've been seeing you, you know, more than maybe what you have. So they might go, hey, you know, Brad, you actually look like you might want to drive, you know, and I reckon you could, you know, and you might not even thought about that, you know, and then they might say, well, you're always talking about all these great things you want to do, and probably you want to get into the car, you know. And so that, I think having those conversations with those community members will help break down a lot of those barriers and help yourself discover who you are, you know.
And I think that's the other aspect of this, Ali, is the journey with a person. You know, touching on the ability to drive. We've had, you know, people with spinal cord injury have been told you'll never drive again. And to journey with someone that, you know, 2 years, 3 years down the track, you're seeing them transfer into a car, into a vehicle that has been fully modified, and off they go in their car. I mean, that's amazing, you know, to see people's goals come to fruition. It's incredible. You know, this to me, I feel working in this industry is one of the most privileged positions that a person could ever have. And we are working alongside of people, and we're seeing, you know, the very sad times, we're seeing the distraught times, but we're seeing those times where people are achieving their goals. And to see a person, behind a wheel and drive their vehicle, which they never thought they ever would, is incredible. And it's something that, we take for granted. We just jump in and out of our car. But the majority of, I just want to touch on the client base that we have, which are people that here in South Australia, which are people that have actually acquired their disabilities through motor vehicle accidents or some risk-taking behaviour or a neurological disorder. When we're journeying with them and when we're seeing them achieve their goals, there is nothing more fulfilling for me. And that's simply not because we're actually doing that. It's the person that's doing that. They're achieving it because they've been empowered, but they've been empowered by a village of people that continually tell them, you can, with the right people around you, with the right technology, with the right encouragement, you can achieve many things.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I think that's a good place to maybe wrap it up.
I think that's exactly what I was thinking. That was a great way to go out. And time's flown. We've gone over 20 minutes. Sorry, people, if you're trying to listen to this on the way to work and you want to wrap it up. We've gone over time again, like we tend to do in most episodes. But before we wind up, we want to ask you one final question, Andy. It's the question that we ask all of our interviewees as we go. But just before we do that, a quick acknowledgement again to our sponsors who make the show possible. That's Mobility Engineering and Williams OT. As we've learned over this podcast, Andy, cars are so much more than just getting from A to B. Is there a memory that you can share about the use of your car, something that you may have done as a family member when you're a kid, or somewhere where you've been, or something that you've used your car for that you'd like to share with us?
Oh gosh, you've put me on the spot there. Do you know, I can't think of one thing, Brad. So maybe you'd like to share something.
Oh, well, I've just been to the Flinders Ranges and four-wheel driving and up through the gorges. The car came back absolutely filthy. We've got some amazing country out there in Australia, and there's so much to see and do. And yeah, I couldn't have done the Flinders Ranges without the car to get there. It's amazing scenery out there. So that's my little share. That's
soul work.
That's awesome, and I guess that's a great way to kind of wrap up, really, because if you're thinking about it, go there and get yourself mobile and independent and get out to the Flinders Ranges. Send us some photos.
It's so close to Adelaide, really. 5 hours roughly driving to get there, but there's so many lovely stops along the way, and it's an amazing, such an old place. We're talking 5 billion years or something like that. It's amazing. There's so much to see and do up there.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So a huge thank you to our guest, Andy from McArthur Community Care. Andy and the other local teams can be contacted through the website at macarthurcommunitycare.com.au, and they are a part of the larger McArthur group, which has been around for over 50 years. So it's wide-ranging, highly, I guess, experienced company. So if you're out there and needing more information or want to get in touch with Andy, we'll put the information also in our show notes and in the Facebook page and so on, and check out all the links. And thanks again, Andy. All right, stick around, folks. When we come back, Brad and I will give our top 3 takeaways from these episodes and offer our expert analysis. Thanks
a million
again.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Thanks a lot, Andy. All right, welcome back. In this section, we bring our expert analysis and our top 3 takeaway from the interview that we've just done for this episode. A huge thank you to Andy. This is where Ali and I provide more than our 30 years of joint experience in the industry to help people with disabilities to drive, or in this case, get out and about in the community to be safe and also do it in a meaningful way. Andy had so many top tips in regards to working with support coordinators. The first number 1 point that we want to make is get it into your plan. Get support coordination into your plan. It sounds like it's something that we should all be doing if we're on the NDIS. Look, I'll give a number 1 example of my experience. I've got a son that's on the NDIS. We've got he's got parents to do all the fine print reading, do all the support coordination for him. But geez, after that first planning meeting, we had no idea really what we were doing. And we would have really enjoyed the relief that would have come through a good support coordinator. OT here, my wife's a speechy. We thought we knew what we were doing, but geez, it's a hard thing to navigate. And I would recommend, from my point of personal story, get it into your plan and get support coordination in there.
Yeah, and really on that first plan as well, as we said, because it's really vital to sort of make sure that you get those goals out and get the right goals, and you have someone sort of batting for you and sort of fighting for you. And one thing I really want to highlight, I guess, if you reflect on all the interviews we've had here, you know, the people that are, one of the common issues is people clashing with the NDIS in some way, shape or form, whether it's through their paperwork or through a person or whatever it is. Well,
Getting
this is basically
approved. Yep.
Yeah, this helps you minimize a lot of that, because as Andy said, these guys know the NDIS, they know the ins and outs. That's their job, is to help you navigate with the NDIS. So it'll just remove a lot of those issues, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of time, you know, and someone that can understand how to get those goals across. Like, for example, as we said, this picture in the background, someone sitting in there may just want to sit in the car and stick out and look at a view like that, you know, rather than be stuck out the back. So, but it might be very hard for them to articulate that, but the support coordinator could really understand and extract that. So that's a huge one, which I think then we can really segue that into the second learning, which particularly, I guess we want to put that message out there for adults and even for kids, that it is okay to ask for help. Like Andy said, take not just like the support coordinator, yes, is important to be able to ask you for help, but also your community. Like, as we mentioned, kids often have their parents around. As Brad said, you know, he's the parent doing that with his child, and he's doing the advocacy and understands those ins and outs. And, but even imagine you didn't, and you didn't know that stuff. So you're just going to be going even more blind, you know? So it's tough.
We have so many clients that come in, Ali, and it's probably the same for you, who just get away with the bare minimal, just enough to be able to survive. And I think it's a cultural thing that an Australian cultural thing where we don't really ask for too much help. We go it alone, and then hopefully someone will come and help us out. And you know, if we give them a six pack, we'll you know, be able to ask for a bit of help that way. Yeah. But there's a mental mind shift here as well as part of this about whose money it is. I don't think we've discussed this in this area at all, but look, it's the government money. It's government assistance to help you. If you need it to be able to reach your goals, then it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to if you're going to spend the government's money and you're going to get out and about in the community, you're going to add back to the community by paying your GST on your groceries and paying for the paying for your coffees and adding back to the community in general. So it's all going to come back into the government anyway. So it's like a circular type of scenario. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask.
It's a huge one, especially for the Aussie blokes out there. That's a big one. You know, I'm very guilty of it myself, and I've had to learn the hard way, and I continue getting slapped in my face the hard way, that it's okay to ask for help. And so, yeah, look, we've got to recognize that. But if you ask for, particularly as we discussed with Andy, there's people within your community, like, especially as an adult, you can feel pretty isolated as a disabled adult. And then we can also, you know, dig into that isolation and create a more isolated lifestyle. But what you will find out, to your surprise, is there's people still paying attention to you, you know, the local coffee shop person or whoever it is. And so if you need a question answered, you can ask them. Just say, hey, what do you think about me? Or what do you think I should be doing with my life, and so on, or whatever it is, you know, whatever. And you'd be very surprised how many people are paying attention to you and actually care, you know. And on that note of what Brad was saying, just being a disabled person and being visible in the community does so much good for our community, because it normalizes the community. Like a community is one that has everything from all walks of life. So if you're out there and just hanging out at the pub, it's got financial benefit in the long run, massive financial benefit, because people are more open-minded, they're accepting, and then they can move much more forward with their lives.
Yeah, and I love that about what's happened since the NDIS has come on board. Yeah, I think it's people are getting what they need, so that means they're getting out more and more. Let's keep it rolling. Let's go into our number 3 takeaway. If you're going to ask for support coordinating, then make sure that you get someone that's experienced and well connected. We spoke to Andy off air. She said that there's people coming through uni and TAFE courses and so forth with a degree in case management, and advocating that they can do this, but a well-connected support coordinator can make a world of difference. That's what I got from Andy all the way through that interview.
Yeah, and that's something which is a common theme where we get throughout this podcast as well. If you're dealing with an OT, someone who knows the suppliers, someone who knows the modifiers, because then they've got that network, they're not just trying to figure it out on their own, and you know that they can lean in on that network to find those answers that you need, and that's really a big element to getting that good quality thing. And the one thing she also mentioned was, look, you've got to really feel comfortable with these support coordinators, and it's okay to maybe filter through 1 or 2 or even more until you find the right one. Because at the end of the day, you're sharing your most inner intimacies with them, your goals, your desires, and you've got to really feel comfortable opening up in front of someone. And not only that, they'll be coming into your house, and they're going to come into your house and they're going to dig into your heart, and find out what is it that you really want, and so those kind of conversations, you can't have them with just a stranger that you don't feel comfortable with. Your mind and your body is just going to be closed to any new opportunity. So you've got to feel comfortable with them. They've got to make you feel good about yourself, and really got to have that kind of empathy piece. And that's what Andy mentioned, was that even within McArthur, they've got hundreds of these workers and so on, and they advocate themselves to the people. If you don't like them, we can sack them and change them, because people don't get along, and that's normal. That's how society works.
Yeah, look, and she was saying that in someone like McArthur, they've got social workers, they've got speech pathologists, got OTs, they've got different people from different backgrounds. So finding the right fit for you would be a really good piece of advice, our last of our top 3 takeaways. And that winds us up. As we wind up this episode, and as we do every week, we want to do a shout out to the sponsors that make this show possible: Mobility Engineering and Williams OT, for helping us bring you this interview today with Andy. Williams OT is a driver assessment and rehab organization that has all the pieces of the puzzle to assist people with disabilities reach their driving and community goals. And Mobility Engineering is a team of passionate and dedicated people focused on bringing Australia's largest range of suitable transport solutions for all walks of life. If you'd like to be a sponsor of this show, make sure that you reach out to us and drop us a line, and we're more than happy to mention your company with these segues in our show. And that's it. As we say in every episode, the advice provided in this podcast is general in nature. If you have any queries about what can work for you and what you can do, make sure you get in contact with your local OT or mobility dealer and set yourself up with a trial. But for this interview, make sure you put yourself in touch with a really good support coordinator. They could make a world of difference. That's it.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Brad. See you next time.
See ya. Thanks for listening to the Drive Able podcast with Brad Williams and Ali Akbarian. If you like what you've heard, make sure you like, rate and subscribe. It really does make a massive difference. If you or anyone you know would like to share a story about driving with a disability, or you would like to get in contact, find the show notes, or find the resources mentioned in this episode, you can find us on Facebook. just search @DriveAble Podcast for more information.